Adam, really a gut punch of a loss on Saturday for Carolina, and it just felt like two different games. The Tar Heels, I thought in the first half, really played good football. Their defense was excellent. Duke had fewer than 100 yards. The Tar Heels were stuffing the run. They were making timely plays in the secondary. Really playing well, I thought, on that side of the ball. They got to the quarterback a couple times. They just were doing a lot of nice things. And then meanwhile on offense, they ran the ball really effectively. Jacoby Criswell was distributing the ball. They found J.J. Jones for a long score. Paid off that nice little shuffle pass to Hampton that looked like it was going to be a score, and then eventually Carolina, even though it had a couple penalties down there, were able to get into the end zone with the pass to Nesbitt. So just good quality football, and I think for this year's version of the Tar Heels, how they will look when they are playing well. Controlling the ball, playing good defense, leaning on Hampton, building off the run game for your pass game. I mean, that's when Carolina is going to be good this year, that's what it's going to look like, I think. Not to say that you can't continue to grow, and we'll talk about that. And then, Adam, in the second half, it starts so strangely with the Tar Heels getting a punt blocked again, but Duke touching it after the punt had been blocked, which allowed it to be a live ball again, and Will Hardy jumping on the loose ball, and Carolina going and adding more to the scoreboard. So from 17-0 to 20-0. And yet, the end of that drive and then the subsequent Duke drive set the tone here, because Carolina goes for it on 4th and 1 inside the 10. It was a great effort by Omarion Hampton to get the first down on a little pitch play where the pitch was a little off, and he had to make sure he secured it on his hip and still fought off a tackler and got the first down. I mean, just a great play that was a 3-yard run. That was a big-time 3-yard run. But there was a hold on the play. And so Carolina has to kick a field goal at that point. And then the subsequent possession, Carolina thought it had a third down stop and was called for pass interference in the end zone, which set up a touchdown for Duke. And so that just allowed Duke a little hope. Like, Carolina was close to Duke being out of hope. But that sequence, instead of having 1st and goal at like the 6, in which you would anticipate Carolina scoring a touchdown, not guarantee, of course. And if you then force Duke into, let's in this imaginary world, say you score a touchdown, and then Duke either is at that point down 24-0, they either have to go for it on a 4th down if you don't get called for that penalty, or maybe kick a field goal. Like, you are in control, right? But instead, self-inflicted wounds really hurt. And so all of a sudden it's 20-0. Duke gets the ball. You make some mistakes. They make it 20-7. Then they get a quick stop, and then it's game on because they're getting the ball back. And it was a 3-and-out right after they scored, so you didn't even really get to milk the clock very much. Plus, Duke gets your defense right back on the field. And they go down and score again, and that was in that drive that had the one explosive pass play that hurt Carolina in that game, that 42 or 3-yard pass to Jordan Moore, which was reviewed, and he made a nice play. And it was just game on from that point on. And then three more main events here. After it was 20-7, from that point forward, Carolina just couldn't effectively run the ball. Omarion Hampton had 32 yards in the second half on 12 carries, and 20 of those 32 yards came on one play. So the other 12 yards, he needed 11 carries to get 12 yards. So they couldn't effectively run the ball. Duke was absolutely effectively running the ball. Star Thomas, a New Mexico State transfer, ends up with 166 yards in the game. And a lot of those, I don't know the exact number, came after contact. Carolina was struggling to tackle. There was one play where he slipped in the backfield, didn't go all the way down because, of course, in college the play would be dead, but slipped in the backfield, got up, and still ran for 8 yards. And it's like, how? So you had Carolina's inability to run, Duke finding a run game, and then penalties. The two that we mentioned, one on offense, one on defense, and then the other highlighted sequence in penalties is that play where Carolina had gotten a first down. They were at the 40, and they get 2 penalties on a first down play. Was that after the fourth down stop? Maybe. So they were starting the drive on the 40. So, great field position. You just go kick a field goal, and you're up 9. And you get 2 penalties on one play. One of them was a hold. That's going to happen. You're going to get called for a hold sometimes. And I think, honestly, Adam, if it had just been a hold, 1st and 20 isn't ideal, but it's doable. But they also got a dead ball unsportsmanlike conduct, and it was 1st and 35. And I don't care if you're Carolina or Ohio State or the Washington Commanders. 1st and 35 is hard to get. And so, to me, that was it. It was Carolina couldn't quite knock Duke out. Then the divergence of who was able to run and who wasn't, and those penalties were killers.
We talked a lot last week, and y'all even talked about it in the booth before the game about how would Carolina start the game and how important that would be in determining the mindset of the team. And I think everybody kind of took a breath when they did start very well, which I thought spoke very highly of them. Maybe too highly of them, because then it gets to 17-0 at half, and I think everybody took a breath, and then it gets to 20-0. It's 20-0. It's 20-0.
And I think 20-0 with 8.5 minutes. I think it was 8:23 is when Carolina kicked it. So it had gone on that long drive, which was, again, that weird play in the middle. But to Carolina's credit, the Tar Heels then took advantage of the heads-up play by Will Hardy to continue that drive, keep the ball for nearly 7 minutes, and add to the lead. So it wasn't like it was 20-0 because Carolina had hit a 75-yard touchdown and then gotten a pick six. And it had been a hard-earned, well-earned 20-0 lead that you thought, well, if Carolina continues to do anything close to what it has done to this point, it's going to have a very workmanlike, impressive road win. But that's unfortunately not what happened.
And instead, everything started happening completely opposite of that, which I didn't feel like I saw any warning signs that this was about to occur. Duke just started dominating the middle, really both offensively and defensively, in a way that they had not done in the 2.5 quarters prior to that. But unfortunately, that was decisive in the game. You don't get a half a win for dominating the other 2.5 quarters. That's not how it works. And Jeff Collins said Monday, I think he said there were 12 big plays for Duke's offense, and 8 of them were caused by missed tackles. So the Tar Heels did miss some tackles and have some physical errors that were problematic. These last 2 weeks are the all-time answer to, is it more painful to be blown out or to lose by 1? It's more painful to lose by 1 because something has gone wrong that you feel like you could have done better. And that was a conference game in a conference that you felt like you had a chance to make some progress in. And instead now you're sitting there at 0-1 and you've got a tough slate ahead and you've lost to your rival and they came across the field and took the bell and you lost to Manny Diaz and now you remember, like, you don't ever really think about losing to Duke in football, but when you do, then you remember, oh yeah, this is what it's like. It's not pleasant.
So for Carolina, I mean, Adam, kind of a head scratcher here on like where to go. Carolina's not bad. I mean, we've seen some bad Tar Heel teams before. We've seen a bad, even non-Carolina team. You know what a bad team looks like. I don't think Carolina's a bad team. But it is not a team, and Mac Brown accurately says this all the time about how close so many of these teams are once you get past the really cream of the crop on the national level. And I mean, shoot, we saw that Georgia and Alabama on Saturday night just playing. I mean, that's a different level of college football than most teams are playing. And so the Tar Heels are just not a team that can survive 10 penalties in 80 yards. I'm just bringing up the penalties because I think it's something that's more controllable. Like, Carolina needs to be successful. It's just got to play more consistent and cleaner football. Carolina has players to be able to have a very successful season and to win the games that are left on its schedule. But Carolina is not at the point right now that it can lose opportunities due to self-inflicted wounds. So you can't lose having a 1st and goal at the 6 because you had the holding penalty. And again, holding penalties happen, like for this specific example. I get it, but it's just like it's just the whole situation of it. You can't have let's say a hold is, most teams are going to get a hold. You can't have a dead ball unsportsmanlike penalty. You can control that. That makes it 1st and 35. Carolina can't overcome that right now. And the Tar Heels can't get to the point where Hampton is neutralized without being able to make that team pay for neutralizing him. And Duke was selling out to stop Hampton. And Mac Brown talked about this some on Monday. Like, teams right now, and Carolina saw this coming. I mean, go back and listen to Mac Brown say, like, when the schedule gets harder, it can't just be Omari and Hampton. So teams are going to do all they can to stop him. Carolina has to be able to make them pay for whatever they are doing to stop him from being as effective as Carolina would like for him to be. You saw that some, like there was that rollout and throw to Copenhaver for 15 yards. The play where Nate McCollum slipped and fell, little bubble screen where it was like, oh boy, this is going to be a big play. And then he slipped and fell and he gained like 3 yards where he could have gained 60 yards had he kept his feet. So the Tar Heels have to be able schematically to do that. And then they've got to have, you can't have those type of penalties. You can't have Nate McCollum fall down when you need him to stay on his feet. Like, those things can't consistently happen because Carolina is just not overwhelmingly talented enough to mitigate those kind of problems.
The penalties are especially frustrating because that's been a point of emphasis ever since last season. And something that we thought had been corrected. And I think you're right that holding either gets called or it doesn't get called. No one, like, they don't snap the ball and be like, I'm going to go hold.
Right.
But you do have the opportunity when the whistle blows and the play's dead. You do then have the opportunity to decide, do I want to keep talking or do whatever I'm doing, or do I want to go back to the huddle and get ready for the next play? One way to definitely neutralize Omari and Hampton is to be in 1st and 35.
Yeah, it's just very – you might get that once if you try 20 times. You might end up getting a first down eventually, but it's just not going to happen.
And your best hope, honestly, is the other team commits a penalty.
Yeah, a pass interference or something.
Right. Throw the ball up and hope somebody runs into somebody and you get a flag. That's really your best hope. And that's this team's best hope. Like, if you have Drake May, maybe you throw a 20-yard out and a 15-yard slant, and here we go. That's not this team. this team is a team that can't afford to make those kind of mistakes, can't afford to have an upperclassman make those kind of mistakes, and needs – you just can't have that happen.
Carolina also Mac Brown talked about meeting with his coaches and got to figure out the punts. I mean, Tar Heels got fortunate that one was recovered and that Carolina kept possession. But that's 2 consecutive games that Carolina's had a punt blocked. That's 5 since the beginning of last year that the Tar Heels have had a punt blocked. And, I mean, we've all seen enough football to know that if you have a big special teams play in that way occur to you negatively, that more often than not you're not going to win. Like, those type of plays are game-changing plays. And so – Tar Heels were fortunate in this particular instance. Again, great heads-up play by Will Hardy to go jump on the live ball. But you can't average getting a punt blocked every game and expect to win.
And I think it's concerning that Mac Brown said Monday Duke blocked the punt in the exact same way that James Madison did. Pitt might block a punt, but they cannot block a punt that same way. They're going to have to do something different.
Did Pitt block I know Pitt ran a kickoff back for a touchdown. Did they block a punt too? I feel like they might have. So, and they've had a week off. I mean, this is not, and we'll obviously preview the Pitt game later in the week. The surrounding circumstances aren't great. You know, Pitt had a week off. They are playing well. They're 4-0. They're confident. They're what they traditionally have done well under Pat Narduzzi is something that Carolina has struggled with, and that is bring aggressive pressure defensively. So this is a big challenge. I think it's Mac Brown said the most complete team that his team has played. I agree with that. I mean, obviously Mac Brown knows more about it than I do, but I agree with that statement. In my kind of initial look at Pitt, I think they're the best team Carolina's played so far this season. So that will be big from every angle coming up on Saturday in Kenan.
I think still the mystifying thing is if the game had stopped after 2.5 quarters on Saturday, which I understand that it didn't.
Right.
We would be thinking this seems like a pretty good matchup.
Yeah.
Like,
I still think it's a pretty good matchup. Carolina's got to figure out a way to, like, you see flashes. Again, that first half, like, that was a good, well-executing, impressive performance that first half. Did the Tar Heels leave a couple of plays? I mean, there were a couple throws that I'm sure Criswell's going to want back. It's his third ever start. Like, Jacoby Criswell is not anywhere on he does not appear on the list of things that Carolina needs to get fixed. Is he as sharp and consistent as Drake May right this moment? No, but who could ever expect him to be? And so did the Tar Heels leave some stuff out there? Yeah, but for the most part, I think they did exactly what they want to do and exactly what can make them good in that first half. Exactly. Control the ball, run the ball, good defense, take advantage when the opportunities are there in the pass game, do enough in the pass game to allow your run game to continue to be effective. Like, they did it all. So it's there. It's the small thing, but those small things got to happen, and they got to they got to happen now. You're 3-2, which is fine. With back-to-back home games, if you go into that bye week 5-2, you feel okay. If you go in 3-4, I don't think you do. So, big 2 weeks upcoming for sure.
Got to get some turnover somehow.
Yeah, that's
beyond
a great point.
Just you let the other team block the punt and then you somehow get it back. That doesn't actually count.
Yeah, only one turnover in this game, and it was at the end where Criswell was hit, and not that it doesn't count, but there were no turnovers in this game really, and it is odd how few turnovers Carolina has forced to this point. It is a point of emphasis. It's something that if you look in its history, Jeff Collins' defenses have traditionally done very well. And yet Carolina just hasn't been able to really make that happen yet. And I think we may have even said this on the air on Saturday. It's like you felt like even when Duke was starting to come back, like In our interview with Jeff Saturday, I'm going to get to my point here. I know I'm bouncing around. In our interview with Jeff Saturday before the Duke game, I talked to him about stopping negative momentum. And he said, in his opinion, the only way to do it like on the field is an explosive play. And on the defensive side, an equivalent of explosive play is a pick, is getting that turnover. And it's like you kept feeling like, man, if Carolina, like I know it's now 20-14, but if the Tar Heels could get a pick right here, or just do something big to flip it, they can do this. And they just could never get that play on either side of the ball. So 3-2, 0-1 in the league, and back-to-back big home games coming up. Old Coastal Division matchups with Pitt and Georgia Tech here in the next 2 weeks. Big ones. Both at noon in Kenan. We did learn the Georgia Tech time.